This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
It was all a dream, love. It's the Brooklyn way.
No man in the sky intervened.
You can't handle the truth.
Fist and abominations.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Where did that bring you?
Introduce a little anarchy.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
Upset the established order and everything.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kayatic Dreams Podcast. I'm your host, AJ, and I'm back with yet another movie review. And I'm going to go right into it, talking about Space Jam today. So, Space Jam 2 has been, 20-something years in the making. I'm seeing a lot of mixed reviews, and a lot of those mixed reviews, as far as the negative end of those reviews, are coming from people in my age bracket, people who were kids when Space Jam 1 came out. So before we get into Space Jam 2, let's talk about Space Jam 1. Anybody who was a kid at that time, yeah, you probably saw it as a classic. You probably saw it as this, untouchable movie. It should have been left alone. FYI, guys, Space Jam wasn't even that great. The acting was subpar. It was you go back and watch the original Space Jam. Yeah, it's like a classic for the children that came out when it came out at that time. But people, you're in your 30s now. You're in your 40s, damn near. If you was a child when Space Jam came out, judge it as a child would, not as an adult would, and that'll be the first thing I say. So, what Space Jam 1 did great was blending the animation with real life. A lot of movies, the only other movie that I think did it on a great scale was probably Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is probably one of the best examples of animation meets real life. But they pulled it off for the most part. Did the movie make super sense? No, but it's a child's film. It's a kid's film. And that's the point that I think a lot of people are lacking coming into Space Jam 2. This is not geared towards us anymore. Yeah, we grew up in that era where the original Space Jam came out, so we have some nostalgia. And a lot of, the adults bringing their children now, they remember their memories of their Space Jam. This Space Jam is not for people who grew up on the original. If you did grow up on the original, you can still find things you like. Me personally, I enjoyed it. I found myself laughing here and there. I had zero expectations going in, which is my new mindset coming into these movies. I don't want to have any expectations. I don't want any plot points ruined for me. I just want to go in there fresh-minded and, no critic reviews, no nothing. I just want to enjoy it and dive in myself. So Space Jam 2, obviously the story was these aliens pretty much wanted to take over the Toon World. They end up stealing the talent from NBA players, putting them in these small creatures that go against the Toon Squad. They have a basketball game to determine if the aliens will take over or the Toon Squad will remain in charge of Toon World. Of course, they recruit Michael Jordan, and the rest is history. So, one of the biggest things about Space Jam that I felt, outside of having someone like Michael Jordan, who at the time was, the GOAT in basketball, undeniable GOAT in basketball, I think the problem with Space Jam 2 is not everyone is behind LeBron James. He's an undeniable talent, definitely a legend in the game. With honestly, in my opinion, with Kobe Bryant no longer with us, rest in peace, Kobe, no one else really fit that role. But I felt like this should have been a trilogy, and the second part should have been Kobe Bryant filling the role of Michael Jordan, and then the third one could have been LeBron James. Unfortunately, it didn't go down that way. We have about 20 years in between the two films, and LeBron James is it. The only other person I could have thought of probably taking on that role is probably at this point Kevin Durant, someone to that extent. But LeBron James, obviously, from the beginning of his career, has been compared to Michael Jordan, so it's kind of a no-brainer to choose him. With that being said, let's talk about LeBron James. His acting in this movie, you can tell this is not his profession. This is his first major dive into cinema, so I won't judge him too much. I will say his lines do come off as someone reading it and phoning it in. I didn't feel attached to him as an actor, but once the tunes got introduced and the story got underway, you kind of forget you know the lack of acting skill that LeBron has, and you kind of dive into the tunes and these worlds that they're showing, and you kind of forget the cheap acting on LeBron's behalf. But once that's aside, I don't really have any major complaints. LeBron actually did a decent job. Like I said, once the story got on the way and the ball got rolling, the tunes were introduced. You know, LeBron actually was enjoyable. He had a lot of moments where it made me laugh. So where are we 20 years removed from the last Space Jam? So the tunes are gone. The last remaining tune is Bugs Bunny on Toon World, and now this was the big difference from Space Jam 1 to Space Jam 2. In Space Jam 1, it seemed like the Toon World was inside our world, and they sucked Michael Jordan through a golf course hole, and that was a big play. That was a big part of the movie where one of Michael Jordan's managers in the film was digging out the hole trying to find Toon World. So in here, all the tunes are gone because Warner Brothers, and that heavy emphasis on Warner Brothers, as considering from Space Jam 1 to 2. In the original Space Jam, you wouldn't even realize Warner Brothers had involvement outside of maybe a logo popping up. But this felt like a Warner Brothers film with the Looney Tunes in it and some aspects of the NBA. It didn't feel like a Looney Tunes movie. It felt like a Warner Brothers movie. Whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, I'll let you guys decide on that. For me personally, I enjoyed it. A lot of cameos we'll get into, but Warner Brothers was showing their ass. They were definitely showing that they're a place that has a lot of IPs. They have a lot of, big characters throughout their history, and Space Jam 2 was a big showcase of that. So the big bad isn't the aliens in this one or the same little creatures from the first one. In part 2, the villain is a computer simulated person. So pretty much Don Cheadle takes on the role of algorithm, and he's AI that's charged with churning out new ideas for Warner Brothers. So pretty much Warner Brothers wants to work with LeBron James. They bring him in. Algorithm pitches an idea for LeBron. LeBron hates it. This causes the computer to pretty much turn villainous, and his plan is pretty much to take all these worlds. You see that he kind of manipulated the tunes into leaving Toon World and storing themselves into the serververse, which is the big world traveling aspect of this movie. Everything is in this big server. Everything is computer programs and cell phone games and stuff like that. So this movie was big emphasis on the world of technology we live in now, and the fact that these kids, everything is a video game, everything is TikTok or some social media aspect. So this kind of played on that. LeBron James' son in the movie is a tech wizard, and he's creating his own basketball game, video game. And Algae Rhythm can tap its cameras, audio equipment, all that. So he knows that LeBron James' son is working on this tech. So he tries to repurpose the tech for his own mission. Taking all these worlds all these IPs that Warner Brothers is in charge of, putting them in the computer simulation, and Algae is pretty much in control of those worlds. His idea was to use the scanning tech that LeBron James' son in the movie created to bring people into the serververse. So this battle was manipulation for algorithm to use LeBron James' son against him, and then the basketball game, which is the whole point of these Space Jam films. The basketball game this time wasn't to save the Toons and the Toon world. This was basically if LeBron James and the Toons squad lost, then everyone who was absorbed through the scan tech would stay in the serververse. So I can see where that was a big issue for people who watched the original coming into this. It was kind of hard to get used to at first, but what made it enjoyable for me was once you get into that serververse and you see what Algorithm's goal was, to kind of populate these worlds in his computer world. That's where these cameos come in. That's where WB really shows their IPs and really shows that they have probably one of the best intellectual properties. Period. We see them jump from Harry Potter universe to the DC universe to even Austin Powers, which was surprising. I didn't even know Austin Powers was a WB product or property. So it was shocking to see Elmer Fudd playing Mini-Me, which was amazing. And, we had a lot of that, different worlds colliding. My favorite being Lola Bunny. Since Toon World was gone for them, they all left Toon World on the push from Algorithm. We see Lola Bunny actually in the world of the Amazons in the Wonder Woman universe, and she's actually in one of those events to prove herself and become an Amazon. And we see LeBron and Bugs Bunny try to recruit her, and we get Bugs Bunny kind of rallying the troops. Bugs is obviously the leader of the Looney Tunes, and that was evident. The cameos that they go through, the worlds that they go through, it was like Where's Waldo of like finding who's the new cameo, like how many people can you name in this, and that continued throughout the whole movie. We end up with a game, and we got Batman, Robin, Joker. We have the cosplay of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Freeze. Like I said, Austin Powers, Dr. Evil, so many. We had King Kong, we had the Iron Giant, we had so many cameos, and I highly enjoyed that. So from that aspect, this film was very successful. I felt like it did what it needed to do. The people in my age bracket that grew up on the original Space Jam, you guys got to realize our time has passed. This is a children's film, and some people are like, oh, it's a classic, it shouldn't be touched. Well, I watched Space Jam 2, then I went back and watched Space Jam 1, and I came to the realization it wasn't as much as a cult classic as or untouchable. No, it was a cult classic, I'll take that back. But it wasn't an untouchable film where there were no plot holes. There were, the story and everything came together perfect. No, there's a couple things in Space Jam 1 that make absolutely no sense. And it's not supposed to. It is a cartoon, people. Are we really that much into our own heads that we gotta judge a cartoon? It's not for us. We can enjoy it because we grew up on it, but at the end of the day, this is for the new kids. This is for the new generation. That's why it's called A New Legacy. Overall, I think it was successful. The film was funny, had a lot of comedic moments. A lot of my favorite parts were the cameos, especially the one with the airness cameo. You guys go check that out. It was really, really funny. But like I said, though, I feel like this should have been a part 3. And the whole time I was like, damn, I wish it was Kobe instead of LeBron. I wish Kobe was still around and we could have got Kobe Bryant in this role. It kind of would have made sense. The successor to Michael Jordan's kind of legacy was Kobe Bryant in the NBA. After Kobe, it's LeBron. So I felt like they waited too long to kind of give us the buffer. I think we could have got that in-between movie to explain where the Looney Tunes were, why they actually agreed to leave. That would have been pretty cool. Maybe we'll get a prequel. Who knows? I think they shouldn't wait too long to reintroduce another Space Jam. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The Looney Tunes mixing with real life acting it just works well. A lot of movies tried it and it doesn't mesh as good. Like um the original graphics of like the painted characters, it's really, you can really see it, like that it's a CG background. They kind of computer generated Michael Jordan on top of the artwork of these cartoons, and that you can really tell. And this one, it's so fluid. It's not. It doesn't like pop at you like, oh look, this is computer generated and looks fake. This one they blended the characters well. The characters even got a virtual upgrade to the liking of like Sonic the Hedgehog from the movie that came out recently. So we got to see that. That was pretty dope. Um, but overall, this is not a movie that I'm looking for art piece. I'm looking for something that's groundbreaking or game changing or cinema changing. No, this was something that you turn off the thinking cap, you just sit down, you enjoy it. It's like the Looney Tunes. They can't be killed. They're cartoons. So stop trying to kill the movie in your reviews. No, you shouldn't be critiquing this movie at 30 something, 40 years old, holding it to the steam of what you're watching nowadays. Go back and watch the original Space Jam. There's a lot of technical issues with that, and we enjoyed it because we were children. This is for the kids. The one glaring difference I would say though, Space Jam 2 needed what R. Kelly did for Space Jam 1. When you think of Space Jam, you think of the theme song, I Believe I Can Fly. That was paired together. It was themed throughout the movie. Usually when I hear that song come on, I think of Space Jam. And when I think of Space Jam, I usually think of that song. Space Jam 2 didn't have anything like that. The music kind of came more generic. I didn't really resonate with the soundtrack of the film. Even though it was, upbeat, it was dope, but you remember I Believe I Can Fly. If you grew up on the first Space Jam, you remember the music video, and you remember watching that and watching Space Jam and watching one because of the other maybe. So I think that's the only thing that was really lacking. They needed a real thematic song, kind of like the first. The second thing I think it was probably lacking was more interaction with the NBA players. So in the original, we had Michael Jordan, but we also had Patrick Ewing. We had a couple of others, and their storyline thread was kept throughout the entire movie, them trying to get their talent back or trying to figure out what's going on. In this one, it was like LeBron James' son just scanned these four NBA stars, but in reality, they weren't affected. One doesn't have to do with the other. They basically just have the same likeness. I did like the difference between the Goon Squad as opposed to the alien. I forgot what they were called in part one, but in this one it was based on video games. So their characters had like one had fire and ice powers. One was like a speed machine. So it was pretty cool. They trying to update it for the times. Everything is virtual. Everything's video games and TikTok. So for you guys that are in my age bracket, guys need to be a little less harsh. This is for the children. Keep that in mind. And I'm pretty sure the children will enjoy this. Go out, form your own opinion. Space Jam 2, in my opinion, was probably a 7.5 to an 8. Very enjoyable. Obviously, got its little quirks about it. Things could have been better. More towards the Don Cheadle character with Algae Rhythm. Even though he had some enjoyable moments, I felt like the villain was probably the only point of the movie that could have been a little bit better. But a whole bunch of cameos. You guys go out, check them out for yourself, and see how many people you can name. Click the comments below, join the conversation. Let me know what you think about my review, what you think about the movie. What did you agree with? What you don't agree with? Let's argue. Let's talk. Let's discuss. Let's debate. Hit those comments. Like, share, subscribe to my podcast. And this was a Space Jam 2 review. Look forward to more reviews in the future. And of course, go out, go watch it, form your own opinion. Have a good one, guys.